Atlanta was alive that night, but it wasn't the kind of life that comes from music rattling car speakers or clubs spilling their beats onto Peachtree Street. No, the energy was heavier, pressing down on the sidewalks and crawling through the neighborhoods like a rumor that refused to stay whispered. This wasn't about fashion or appearances, not about who headlined the hottest stage or who got photographed on the right arm of the right celebrity. The city itself felt tense, as if every street lamp and every cracked sidewalk had overheard secrets too loud to keep. And at the center of it all was Bambi, a woman who had spent years biting her tongue until the taste of blood had become normal. A woman who chose silence over chaos because she thought keeping the peace was the best gift she could give her children. But silence is never permanent. It rots, it festers, it suffocates. That night, Bambi had nothing left to hold in. She walked into the room with her head high, every step heavy with the weight of broken promises, of humiliation disguised as love, of lies dressed up as misunderstandings. Her story had been twisted too long, her name dragged too often, her dignity stripped in the name of family. This time she wasn't here to play nice. This time she was here to let the storm rip through everything, no matter who got soaked. She faced Mama D with a stare that could cut through concrete, the kind of stare you don't break because you've been holding it for years. For a decade, the tension between them had been painted as a clash of personalities, a clash of generations, a clash between a wife and a mother-in-law who just couldn't get along. But behind the scenes, Bambi knew the truth. This wasn't just personalities. This was the careful orchestration of Scrappy, who had spent years playing both sides, whispering one version to his mother and another to his wife, then sitting back to watch them fight like puppets on strings. And while the world thought he was just a man caught between two strong women, the reality was crueler. He was the architect of the chaos. He thrived in the confusion, protected himself by keeping them divided. And the people who suffered the most weren't him. It was the children, the family, the ones growing up in the shadows of dysfunction. That night, Bambi decided she was done playing a role in someone else's performance. She reminded Mama D of the birthday party she had just thrown for their daughter. A party full of laughter, balloons, cake, promises. A party where Scrappy had sworn he would show up. He told his daughter he wouldn't miss it, told his kids he was coming, told Bambi he wouldn't let them down. But when the day came, he was nowhere to be found. Another broken promise in a long line of disappointments. And instead of being held accountable, instead of being called out for standing his children up, Bambi had to watch as Mama D turned around and held her own separate events, posting smiling pictures with the kids on Instagram as if everything was fine. To the world, it looked like a happy family moment. To Bambi, it was yet another reminder that she had been erased, disrespected, and excluded from moments that should have belonged to her just as much as anyone else. Her voice cracked through the air like a whip. He told me all week he was coming. He stood up his daughter. He stood up his son. And I'm the one left looking like the fool. Those weren't just words about one birthday party. They were years of pain finally surfacing. Every christening she wasn't told about. Every milestone she found out about through Instagram. Every whispered insult painted as truth while she was branded cold, bitter, and unworthy. She carried every one of those moments into the room that night, and the fire in her voice made it clear she wasn't backing down. For once, there would be no swallowing tears in private. The whole world would see the lies for what they were. Mama D shifted in her chair, her usual quick tongue faltering for the first time. The woman who had built her image on sharp one-liners, on a larger-than-life crown and queen persona, suddenly looked small. She admitted softly, carefully, that maybe Scrappy had been stirring the pot. Maybe he wanted the two women at odds so he didn't have to face his failures. Maybe he'd been using them both as shields. But to Bambi, those words weren't revelation, they were insult. Because she had been saying that for years, and no one wanted to hear her. To hear it now after the damage had been done felt like yet another excuse. How many times had she been promised change? How many times had apologies been offered only for the cycle to repeat itself? How many moments had been stolen from her because people refused to hold him accountable? Her words came out sharp, steady, unshakable. You've excused him long enough. You've let him lie to you, lie to me, lie to his own kids. You think this is about us? It's not. It's about him. He's the one who built this mess. The silence in the room was thick enough to choke on. Even the cameras seemed to pause, hungry to capture every crack in Mama D's royal mask. And for the first time, the queen admitted defeat. Her voice trembled as she said it. I let him play me. I let him play us both. And I'm ashamed. The words weren't dramatic. They weren't theatrical. They were raw, stripped down to the bone. But raw doesn't mean redeeming. Because apologies, no matter how sincere, don't erase humiliation. They don't erase the years of being painted as the villain. They don't erase the scars of betrayal etched into Bambi's chest. She leaned forward, her eyes narrowing as her voice sliced through the space like glass. Do you understand what you did? Do you understand that you let your son convince you I was the enemy? Do you know how many nights I cried myself to sleep because of something he whispered in your ear? Those questions weren't rhetorical. They were accusations. They were demands for acknowledgement. And for once, Mama D didn't fire back. She clasped her hands together, her crown slipping under the weight of honesty, and admitted that she had chosen blindness because it was easier than facing the truth about her son. But if anyone expected Bambi to soften, they didn't understand the cost of years of erasure. She wasn't a naive wife anymore. She wasn't desperate for validation from the family she married into. She was a mother hardened by betrayal, a survivor of divorce, a woman who had learned that peace only comes when you demand it. Forgiveness wasn't on the table, not yet. Maybe not ever. She spoke with the conviction of someone who had replayed every insult, every exclusion, every broken promise in her head 1,000 times. She wasn't just confronting a mother-in-law. She was confronting a system built to silence her while elevating the man who caused the chaos. And she was done. The conversation turned to the christening, the sacred moment she had been excluded from completely. Her eyes glistened but didn't break as she demanded answers. How could something so meaningful happen without me? How could you look at my children, dress them up, smile for the cameras, and never think their mother deserved to be there? Mama D fumbled, stammering about assumptions, about not wanting to cause drama, about thinking Bambi wouldn't attend because of her tension with Scrappy. But Bambi heard the truth hidden beneath the excuses. You erased me. You stole a memory I can never get back. You made me invisible in my own children's lives. And that was unforgivable. The room felt colder, heavier. Mama D admitted that maybe she had been wrong. Maybe she had allowed her son to manipulate her. Maybe she had chosen loyalty to him over fairness to Bambi. But those admissions didn't feel like healing. They felt like salt in a wound. Because it was too late to undo the damage. It was too late to relive the milestones. It was too late to erase the pain etched into her children's understanding of family. The storm brewing in that room wasn't just between two women, it was a reckoning with the truth. Scrappy had manipulated them both. He had used his mother as a shield, his wife as a scapegoat, his children as pawns. And now, with the walls crumbling, the truth was spilling out faster than anyone could contain. But truth doesn't always heal. Sometimes it only sharpens the pain. Bambi folded her arms, her voice steadier than her trembling body suggested. I don't trust words anymore. I don't trust tears. I've heard them all before. If you're serious, then prove it. Show me with actions. Show me by standing up to him when he lies. Show me by refusing to let him erase me again. Because I won't keep playing the fool. Not for him, not for you, not for anyone. Her demands weren't dramatic, they were survival. She wasn't asking for peace. She was demanding dignity. And dignity isn't negotiable. Demanding dignity. And dignity isn't negotiable. Mama D nodded slowly, her own tears drying into resolve. For once, she spoke not as a queen, but as a grandmother, as a woman terrified of losing access to the grandchildren who gave her joy. She promised, this time with more steel than softness, that she would put boundaries in place. She promised that her loyalty to her son would no longer come at the cost of truth. She promised that she wouldn't let him pit them against each other again. But promises, no matter how firm, are fragile. And Bambi knew it. Her skepticism was carved into the lines of her face, the way her arms stayed crossed even as she nodded. Baby steps, she said. Just baby steps. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't reconciliation. It was cautious survival. The air in the room thickened as the cameras caught every flicker of expression, every crack in the facade. This wasn't a scripted storyline anymore. This was real life, raw and unfiltered, the kind of reality that reality TV rarely shows. And beneath every tear, every pause, every shaky promise, one question lingered unspoken. What would happen when Scrappy found out? What would happen when the man who built his power on secrecy realized that the two women he had divided for years had finally compared notes? And as that question settled into the silence, the storm outside rattled against the windows, echoing the storm brewing inside. The first act of reckoning had unfolded. But the war was only beginning. The silence after that sit-down didn't feel like relief. It felt like waiting for a storm to crack the sky. Bambi left the table with her guard still high, her arms crossed so tight her nails dug into her skin, every step carrying the weight of betrayal she still wasn't ready to forgive. She had forced the truth out of Mama D, had made her admit what no one ever thought she would say, but it didn't feel like a win. It felt like unfinished business, because the person who started all of this, the man who built the lies brick by brick, hadn't even walked into the room yet. And without Scrappy, it was like fighting a shadow. You could swing all you wanted, but the thing you were hitting never truly took form. The cameras stayed rolling, the producers whispering to each other as if they knew something was about to happen. And then, like clockwork, the door opened. Scrappy stepped in, his presence shifting the energy instantly. He wasn't loud, not yet, but he didn't need to be. His silence was louder than shouting. His eyes darted from his mother to his ex-wife, narrowing as if he could smell the betrayal before anyone said a word. He had that look he always wore when the narrative started slipping from his hands, a mix of wounded pride and rehearsed indignation. He didn't have to ask what had been said. He could feel it in the air. For the first time, the two women he had spent years keeping divided were sitting on the same side of the line, and that realization lit something dangerous behind his eyes. Bambi didn't move. She leaned back in her chair, arms folded, a calm expression masking the fire in her chest. Her silence said everything. She wasn't going to beg for him to explain, wasn't going to play into his performance. Mama D shifted uneasily, her earlier promises already being tested as her son's gaze bore down on her. When Scrappy finally broke the silence, his words dripped with venom. "So this what we doing? Sitting around talking about me like I ain't here? Plotting behind my back?" The accusation was familiar, the kind of line he had used 1,000 times to turn the focus away from himself. But this time the women didn't flinch. They didn't rush to soothe him. They didn't let him spin. Bambi's voice cut through the room, steady and cold enough to pierce him. "Ain't nobody plotting. We just telling the truth. The same truth you've been hiding from both of us for years. And now? You don't get to control the story anymore." Her words landed like blows, not shouted but sharp enough to sting. Mama D nodded beside her, her earlier tears replaced with something harder, something closer to resolve. "You've been playing us, boy. Playing your wife, playing your mama, even playing your kids. But it stops here." Her crown might have slipped in private, but in that moment she wore it again, not to defend her son, but to finally confront him. Scrappy's jaw tightened, his eyes flickering between the two women like a man who suddenly realized the script wasn't his anymore. He tried to laugh, that half smile he used whenever he felt cornered, but the sound fell flat. There was no charm to save him this time. He had walked into a room where his usual tricks no longer worked. Bambi sat unmoved, her voice low but loaded. "You made me the villain for years, told everybody I was bitter, cold, disrespectful. And all along, you was the one lying. You let your mama believe I was the problem so you didn't have to face yourself." She didn't blink when she said it. Her words were the kind that didn't need volume. They carried weight all on their own. The tension was unbearable. Even the crew stopped breathing, the cameras catching every twitch of his face, every bead of sweat glistening under the lights. Mama D pressed her hand to the table, her voice trembling but firm. "I ain't protecting you this time. I ain't covering for you no more. You grown. You made your bed, now you lay in it." For a woman who had defended her son against everyone, even against common sense, those words cracked the room open. It was betrayal, but it was also justice. And Scrappy knew it. He leaned forward, his voice raising, the performance creeping back. "So that's it? Y'all teaming up now? My own mama? The same mama who always had my back?" His anger echoed, but no one flinched. Bambi leaned in closer, her tone ice cold. "Ain't no team. It's the truth. You mad because you can't control it no more? You mad because we see you for what you are?" Every syllable hit like a hammer, and the silence that followed was suffocating. For the first time, Scrappy looked cornered, his usual armor cracking in front of the cameras he once manipulated like puppets. But the danger of a cornered man is that he doesn't surrender quietly. His eyes flashed, his chest rising and falling like he was gearing up for a fight. The storm outside the room seemed to sync with the storm inside it, the rattling windows echoing the tension about to snap. Mama D looked at her son, then at Bambi, her voice heavy with the fear of what would come next. "This ain't over," she whispered, almost to herself, but loud enough for everyone to hear. And she was right. This wasn't the end. This was only the beginning of a battle that would rip through their family, their reputation, and their city. Because if history had proven anything, it was that Scrappy didn't take betrayal lightly. And now, for the first time, he was standing alone. The air in the room after that clash didn't ease. It thickened, stretching every second like it was about to snap. Scrappy stood with his hands pressed against the table, breathing hard, his eyes locked on the two women who had finally stopped playing into his game. For years, he'd walked into rooms knowing that one of them would take his side, knowing that all it took was a well-placed half-truth, a quick apology, or a flash of charm to keep them divided. But not this time. Not tonight. The silence burned him more than shouting ever could, because silence meant his tricks were exposed. And in that silence, the weight of his own manipulation came crashing down, heavy and undeniable. Bambi didn't blink. She sat back, her body language calm but her eyes sharp enough to slice through every excuse he could ever think of. "You don't get to twist it anymore," she said, her voice calm, steady, final. "Not after everything you put me through. Not after everything you put your kids through." The way she said it didn't leave space for argument. It wasn't up for debate. She wasn't begging for an apology, wasn't asking for explanations. She was drawing a line, one he couldn't charm his way past. Mama D echoed it, her tone softer but carrying the same sting. "You lied to me, boy. Lied straight to my face, made me turn against that woman for no reason. And I let you. I ain't proud of it, but I won't do it again." Her words trembled, not from weakness, but from the shock of finally choosing truth over loyalty. And the sting in Scrappy's eyes proved he understood just how much power he had lost. For a moment, he tried to laugh it off, that familiar smirk curling at his lips like he was about to play the same old game. But the room didn't bend the way it used to. Bambi didn't roll her eyes and walk out. Mama D didn't jump to defend him. The cameras didn't cut to a softer angle to make him look sympathetic. All of it was raw, and all of it was real. The smirk fell, and what replaced it was something uglier. Anger. He raised his voice, chest rising as he threw out accusations, claiming they were ganging up on him, claiming they were trying to embarrass him on camera, claiming they didn't understand the pressure he was under. But the words landed flat, because excuses don't carry the same weight once the truth is exposed. And both women sat in front of him unmoved, tired of letting him spin webs out of nothing. Bambi's words cut through the noise again, this time low but dangerous. "You think this is about TV? You think this is about clout? This is about your children. They don't need a daddy who disappears when it's time to show up. They don't need a father who lies to keep his mama and their mama fighting. They need someone who actually puts them first. And if you can't be that man, then stop acting like you will be." Her voice cracked for just a second, the weight of her kids' faces flashing behind her eyes. But she didn't let it weaken her resolve. She held his gaze, forcing him to see the damage he had caused. And for once, he had no quick comeback. No slick line. No excuse strong enough to cover what she had just laid bare. Mama D leaned forward, her crown slipping further as her tone hardened. "You've been my baby all your life. I protected you, defended you, even when I knew you was wrong. But I ain't doing it no more. You a grown man. You got kids. And if you keep running the way you've been running, you gon' lose them for good." Her voice cracked on the last words, and the fear in her eyes made the room heavier than ever. For the first time, the queen wasn't speaking as a character, wasn't performing for cameras. She was a mother staring at the man she had raised and realizing she could lose not just him, but the family she loved, if the cycle didn't break. Scrappy shifted, his jaw tight, his eyes glistening with a mix of rage and something he didn't want anyone to name: guilt. He didn't lash out this time. He didn't storm out. He just stood there, trapped in the corner of his own lies, and the silence from both women forced him to sit in it. The cameras zoomed in, catching the rawness of a man who had finally run out of scripts. The silence stretched, long enough for everyone watching to know that something had changed. The grip he had over the narrative was gone, and in that moment, the power shifted permanently. Bambi rose to her feet, her chair scraping against the floor like a full stop to the entire scene. She looked down at him, her words heavy with finality. "You don't get to play me anymore. You don't get to erase me anymore. I'm not your scapegoat, and I'm not your storyline. I'm the mother of your children, and I won't let you use them the way you used us. Every word dripped with resolve, every syllable daring him to try and twist it. He didn't, because deep down he knew she wasn't bluffing. She was finished being a prop in his chaos. She was finished letting him win by keeping her silent. Mama D followed suit, standing slowly, her hand brushing the table as if to steady herself. She looked at her son with tear-filled eyes, but spoke with a firmness that shook even her. This is the last time I let you put me in the middle. The last time I let you lie and laugh while we tear each other down. I love you, but I won't lose my grandbabies because of your games. If you want me in your life, you're gonna have to be better. If you don't, that's on you. The declaration stunned him because he had never seen her choose anyone else over him, not once in his life. But tonight she did, and that betrayal cut deeper than any words ever could. The room froze in that standoff, 3 lives colliding under the weight of years of secrets, pain, and manipulation. Outside, Atlanta kept moving, cars honking, streetlights buzzing, people scrolling through clips of the sit-down that were already trending online. The city had no idea how fragile this moment really was, how close the family inside was to shattering for good. And as the cameras caught the final shot, Bambi walking out, her head high, Mama D standing tall but trembling, and Scrappy left in silence, it was clear that this wasn't closure. This was only the crack before the earthquake, because the real question wasn't whether Bambi and Mama D had finally united. The real question was what Scrappy would do now that the control he had built his entire world on had slipped through his fingers. And if history was any clue, the storm wasn't over. The storm had only just begun. The storm had only just begun.